Okay.
Okay, great. So tonight we're going to be talking about best practices, and it tends to be one of the more interactive trainings that we do, because I want to bring you what we have learned and understand as best practices in this sector. But we also want to encourage you to share with one another what's working and to get out there what's getting in your way, what's getting in our way. Because as we can identify what those things are, we can brainstorm, we can give ideas, and even if it's something that we want to take offline and follow up with after, we can do that. So I encourage you to be as active as you'd like, either in the chat or if you want to raise your hand, there's a function for that. And Osnat will be keeping track and interrupt me when it's necessary. So that being said, I'm going to share my screen. And I'll be stopping frequently as we go through the presentation to focus on different areas of best practices where I can see you and hear from you, and you can hear from one another. I always like to start with giving you the sense that you are part of an effort in North America that is in 72 different communities now. And those 72 communities include more than 750 Jewish nonprofit organizations of all kinds, as you know, because you're a very diverse group of organizations coming together just in Ann Arbor. I'm also going to ask you to mute yourself unless you're me, and then feel free if you want to ask a question or put something in the chat to go ahead and do that. Those 750 organizations are out there working in teams just like you all, and those teams have all secured 33,000 legacy commitments, and it's over that now. We have new numbers, but they haven't been officially announced yet. So this is still, these numbers are from the September quarter. And as you know, you've already turned in your reports for December. We're just takes us a while to get them all collated and put together and then reflected to you. So of those 33,000 legacy commitments, it's worth an estimated future value of about $1.26 billion. The exciting part of that is the $135 million that is already in organizational endowments doing the work that endowments do. And we're seeing that as an average of about $53,000 per gift. Again, that's an average. So you know that we're using a placeholder of 25,001, so you can see that that's a very conservative placeholder, and that the way that this is running is looking really good. So how's Ann Arbor doing? As of the end of December, you had 336 legacy commitments, which is fabulous. You exceeded your year one goal. Many of you have carryovers for year two. You're doing great. And that's worth an estimated almost $10 million. I suspect it's probably over 10 now because I haven't gotten the most recent numbers. You already have realized in organizational endowments $357,000 from just 23 gifts. And I like to show that it doesn't tell us much, a whole lot now because it's only 23 gifts, but just to show you that this isn't just something to think about for 50 years in the future. This turns into real money very quickly. Across the country, the research shows that when you engage in endowment asks and legacy asks, it takes about 5 years to start seeing results. And it's also based on the numbers. So there's an average, this is an average, doesn't mean you're all going to get there, but an average of between 12 and 13 legacy gifts, you'll reach $1 million gift. So if you use the numbers, the more that you ask and the more legacy letters of intent you secure, gives you really the best position to have a meaningful endowment, one that could transform your organization. How are you doing in year two? So manually, the goal is not 198, it's 180, so you're fine. And your year two letters of intent are 86. Most of those are carryovers, so I do encourage those of you, you know who you are, to get on the ball. So you have until the end of August. So it's not a great rush, but now is the perfect time to say, let's try to get one every, if each team member takes one conversation each month, you should be able to get there by the end of August. And you just have to get there one person at a time. So to jumpstart you, if you feel like you're kind of in a little bit of a rut, and I hope you're not, but I will be hearing from you. So hopefully you're working it. It's just taking a while to get going. Review your top 20 prospects. You may look at the list that you created last year and see that it's really changed a bit, or some of them said yes, some of them said no, some of them are off the list. New people may come onto the list. So recreate that list of 20 prospects. Share your year one success with your donors. So let them know that you achieved your goals in year one, and you and your organization benefited from getting an incentive grant for that. So share your success. Get testimonials or stories from people that have made legacy commitments. So you already have a minimum of 18 legacy donors. Ask them if they're willing to share why they decided to make a legacy gift, what the organization means to them, and then take a nice picture or take a quick video, put it up on your Facebook page or share it in an email, put it on a poster once we start going back into our buildings. Lots of nice things that you can do with testimonials. But you can't get around the really important one, which is the asking. It really all does come down to asking. You have to be willing to do that. So I'm not going to jump ahead because I want to get some input on that, but just to give you a sense of our agenda tonight, I'm going to talk about the best practices around conversation, that this is specifically the legacy conversation. And while doing that, I'm going to give you some information on how you do an integrated ask, meaning all of you, many of you are running concurrent campaigns, certainly an annual campaign along with legacy, but some of you also may be doing a capital campaign or thinking about a capital campaign or thinking about some kind of special other campaign. And we like to look at legacy as being integrated into those, not standing alone. So we're going to talk about how you do that. Talk about best practices in marketing, best practices in stewardship, team and board engagement, and the culture of philanthropy, which I think and I say best practices today with this particular picture, meaning we're still in COVID times, even though hopefully we're on the other side of that. But we are seeing big results because of the pandemic. So what are we learning from these past 2 years? We're learning that mortality is really top of mind, that many more people have gone online to make wills, to have estate plans, to be sure that they have beneficiaries designated on all their accounts. People are aware that things can turn on a dime, whether for us or for people we love, or for our parents or other people in our circles. We're seeing an increase in those end-of-life plans. We're seeing people say, wait a second, what's really important, right? A lot of people that had jobs said, I don't want to be doing this job for the rest of my life. Life's too short, and they are making other choices. And we're seeing that as well in the Jewish communal world. Lots of transition. My own husband is retiring this year. So, and I think COVID had a lot to do with it. There's a renewed appreciation for community. We were very building focused before. And then I think during this pandemic, we've realized that, that the community isn't just what happens in the building, that we have to take those opportunities to create community using all the technologies that are now available to us. It made really clear the need for an endowment. We know that organizations who have endowments had a much easier time being able to make that change, the pivot, to incorporate new forms of technology, to get new cameras, to get safety equipment, to hire more substitute teachers. Whatever it is, those it made really clear that when we didn't know what the future looked like, that endowment was that factor that was going to give us a foundation and a support in the event that things happen, and things always happen. And that's what we've learned over the last 2 years, that things keep happening. Conversations, which we recommend always one-on-one, face-to-face, are taking place. They are taking place on Zoom, FaceTime, Google Chat, on the phone, and sometimes in person, sometimes outside, socially distanced, with masks, whatever, but they are taking place. We thought this was it. People were just going to stop, but that has not happened. We are a resilient folk, us human beings. So in talking about best practices, I like to think about the 3 W's: what's working, what's not, and what's next, or what do we do about it? So I'm going to start with conversation. And before I go here, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to ask you all to, you can put this in the chat or you can unmute and talk, but I would like to hear, how are your conversations going? If you think you're doing a pretty good job of conversations, share what your secret is. Share a couple tips with one another. And likewise, if you're having trouble, you just can't seem to get yourself to make that ask, if you have the courage to raise your hand and let us know what's getting in the way, or why is it difficult, or what's going on, we're going to try to break through that and help you. So look, I know that Temple Beth Emeth has had a lot of conversations, because they have a lot of letters of intent. So I would love to hear from somebody from TBE about your conversations.
Well, I'll hop in since
yes, Eileen, get us started.
Unmuting. And I know this gets actually a little bit to later when you talk about integrated ask. But I think that for us, for Federation, obviously we're in the middle of a campaign. So we have an opportunity, and we use it to speak to donors with whom we're having a conversation anyway, to ask them to consider, a legacy gift. I was speaking with someone from another team when Osnat and I were having conversations, and it dawned on me, the same thing can actually happen, right? When, let's say, congregations are having their membership, reaching out for membership renewal, to make a conversation during membership renewal, tie that to, hey, have you considered, endowing your annual membership, for example. So I think while Federation does have a regular annual campaign, all of our organizations are always in the process of asking people for gifts. And so keeping that top of mind and making that part of that conversation is something I think that we've had some success with.
Great. And I like to think of legacy as a tool in your toolbox for a person who is in a position to ask people for gifts, or really anything, or even if you're asking people to volunteer or take part in anything. Sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no, but it can also be a door for another conversation about ensuring the future. I saw that somebody had their hand up.
It's me. I think it might be kind of hard to see with my.
Yeah, Margaret, thank you. Yes.
So I just wanted to share one thing that I think the TBE team has had success with, and that's when we're trying to have conversations with smaller groups of people, not necessarily one-on-one. We've been intentional about trying to bring people together thoughtfully. So like having folks from the various affinity groups within the congregation coordinating with the leadership of WTBE, the women of TBE, or with Brotherhood, or, and so on, and having them help us put together these groups. Same thing with the choir and so on. So I think that has led to more comfortable conversations, because the folks who are sort of in the room, whether the Zoom room or the physical space, I think it makes the conversation feel a little bit more accessible.
Yeah. And tell me more about has there been any follow-up from those? What do those look like? Like, how do you present legacy there? Is that the purpose of the gathering, or is it a larger purpose that you're just kind of taking a couple minutes?
Yeah, at least so far, it's been the purpose of the gathering. So I think, having maybe some drop-ins of some sort for other events might be something that we consider going forward. But, we've found that even though we've done a lot of trying to share information about life and legacy with the congregation, we're still finding people who aren't completely aware of what life and legacy is, or like they've heard of it, but they don't really remember exactly what it is. And so it's been helpful to just keep trying and to try to spread the message to different people in multiple ways, hoping that, at least once they'll get the full version.
I just want to ask how many other people have experienced that? Where you think it's obvious, right? I'm asking you for a legacy gift, but you're encountering people that don't really know what you're talking about, or right, they don't necessarily have all the information. Yeah, so remember, you're learning, you're actively learning. You've been attending trainings, you've been listening to trainings, you've been looking at written things, you've been seeing the emails that come by, but most people aren't. They are not thinking about legacy on a regular basis. So when you bring it up, it's sort of out of the blue. That's why we talk about the marketing. But I love that idea of the small groups. And Margaret, I did want you to answer one more thing, and that was about the follow-up. What do you do for follow-up?
So I'm simultaneously navigating bedtime, and I see that Robin has her hand up, so I might see if Robin can chime in.
Okay, Robin, talk about follow-up.
Well, we have a pretty good system with a Google document.
Okay.
So, we're tracking conversations and emails, and there are 3 or 4 of us that have done most of the asks. So we periodically go over this Google Doc, and we'll go back to somebody that we may have sent an LOI to and just say, oh, by the way. But I think I would say, I think what's frustrating, and I've said this, to other organizations, is that despite all these wonderful articles we're putting in the Washington Jewish News, and despite all our marketing, people, I think, are so overloaded with online communication that they aren't reading. And, we've had a couple of donors, one of whom was involved in the very major role in a nonprofit in Ann Arbor. And when Judy Lax and I approached her, she had not heard of Life and Legacy, despite everything we've done in the bulletin and everything in the Washington Jewish News. So I'm not trying to vent, but I'm just saying there's a real frustration that we're doing this, and maybe you'll talk about that with marketing, and that we still have so many people who have not even heard about it.
I hear you. I was actually saying today to my husband, we were at brunch, and I said, honey, I'm just feeling like the volume is up too high. There's too much coming in at me. And I felt like I needed to eat lunch is what I needed to do. But also there's a lot coming at us now. And so there's a lot of deleting and not looking. And so we are competing for people's shortened attention spans. And I think that's the thing that I thought about when you said that was keep it short, right? Whatever attention span we had, it's cut in half. So I think I heard somebody say with Twitter, they get 90 seconds. They can do a 90-second video. That's the maximum. Well, I think the maximum is 2 minutes. But when you're doing a video, we're talking about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. We're not talking about a 45-minute program anymore. So even articles, right? Pull out the gem and highlight it in big type in, behind a bright blue screen or something. I think people they have a lot coming. We have a lot coming at us. So getting through that noise is a challenge. Alan, I saw you had your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah. Eileen had us, a number of us listen to a speaker from Denver, Dirk, and I can't
Dirk
remember his
Bird.
last. Huh?
Dirk Bird.
Yeah, and he made a very interesting comment. And that was about temple dues, organizational dues.
Yes.
Most of us are, we send out a form, we say, renew your membership. There's no personal interaction on that transaction. And that if we started, divide, somehow go through your whole congregation in 5 years or something like, have a one-on-one conversation with them, A, about their dues, and then B, then roll into the life and legacy conversation, and not just have it as a transaction of, yeah, you're going to give your dues plus 3% or whatever that is. But I thought he made a really good point that we need to have more personal interaction and use that as a way of talking to our members, getting feedback from them, and then also introducing life and legacy.
Yes, because the legacy gift, which has the potential to be a much larger gift than anything anybody's ever given during their lifetime, is a gift of the heart. It's a gift based on values and connection. And in the situation of a transaction, that is not reinforced. So that's why we have teams. That's why we ask you to work on, to have a conversation with people. Don't just ask them to sign a document, because that's the transaction. But the conversation is, who are you? What's your connection to our organization? What got you involved in the first place? What do you care about? And what impact do you want to make in our future?
And I think I did the division on the money we've taken in the 23 donors. It's about $15,000. And I know that's not their probably final.
Alan, there was a reason I did not do the math for you all. I'm not ready to share that number yet, because it's not indicative of what the trend that we're going to see. Okay.
I brought it up because it's not just, endowing your dues. We're looking for much bigger gifts than that. And to let them off the hook with just endowing their dues. I mean, 20,000 is $1,000 dues commitment. But we need to be making sure that we're putting bigger numbers out there as we're talking to people.
So it's funny to hear that Dirk used that example. Dirk is a member of my husband's synagogue, so it's funny that he used that, but I use a similar example. My example is 12 times a year, once a month, I get an invoice from the synagogue, and it tells me what I owe. And every time I look at it, I go, wow, I'm going to put this aside. And when they finally start doing something like writing a personal note or saying, thank you for your contribution, or Tammy, I hope that everything's going well, or put in a little card with a smiling child from the preschool, how much fun they're having with their little masks at preschool. I don't know, just something to connect me with the institution, the organization, beyond this is what you owe. I think it just feels transactional, and there's 12 times a year that letter with a 50-cent stamp comes into my home, dropped into my box. I have to pick it up, undo it, right? But there's a lot of effort there. How much effort would it take to create a sweet card and put it in that thing that goes out once a month? So when somebody does that, I want you to send me whatever you do, because I want to.
It's gotten even more impersonal because now it's just done via email.
Or via email, which is even worse. Yeah. Easier to set. Okay.
Tammy, my suggestion to you is you talk to the rabbi of that congregation and get it fixed.
I can't talk to him anymore, but thank you. I wanted to call out Shira, who says everyone turns to the place they are most comfortable to get knowledge: newspaper, online, postcards in the mail, video, talking in person, and sometimes it takes more than one way to reach someone, and repeat it the other way. Beautiful, great stuff.
So I see Jen has her hand raised. And also I just want to say to Robin, like for every person, I wrote it in the chat, but for every person who, you know, says, oh, I have no idea what life and legacy is. We know that when people have sent out a list or have done, you know, there are different ways in which people have said, oh, what is this legacy thing? So it, you know, don't get too frustrated because as Shira said, there's lots of different ways to reach.
Is someone on the call from Beth Israel? Do we have anybody from Beth?
Unfortunately not right now. So there was some various issues, which is why, but that is exactly the example. Yeah.
Okay, so apparently they sent out a stewardship postcard to the whole congregation, thanking and noting the legacy donors from the first year. And they got calls afterwards from people that wanted to know more and signed letters of intent. So really successful stewardship effort. Jen.
So in connection to your question about what's going well, Anne's connection about people not reading stuff, one of the things that's going well for me is actually the people not reading thing is a good opportunity, because I find that I am most successful when I can bring my excitement and commitment to Hebrew Day School to a conversation with the donor. And it's that personal connection that we talk about all the time. So if they don't know about it, great, I'm going to tell you all about it. And it's a really wonderful opportunity. So, you know, I like Shira said, like everyone's got to get it in some way, and some are not going to get it in any way. And I'm going to be the way they're going to get it. And that's fine too. And it's been quite successful.
Love that. Thank you. Remember, your donors aren't in the halls every day. They're not seeing what's going on. And actually even worse, most of us are not leaving our homes that much. So we really don't know what's going on in the outside world. So when you're able to bring a little bit of that enthusiasm and passion and excitement, it goes a long way to lift us out of the place that we're at and just give us another connection to what's real and what's ongoing. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Just share my screen, and I'm going to jump into how you have that integrated conversation. First, I'll talk about the best practices. Are you the right person? Somebody earlier today said they were in one of my trainings said they were they're brand new to the organization. So are they the right person to be having that conversation? That's a good question. Are you the right person? Do you have the relationship with that person that you're the one that should be having the conversation? And should there be somebody else? So it's a couple people. Is legacy the right ask? Maybe it's somebody that you really want, who know that they want to put their name on a building, and you have an impending capital project. So then maybe legacy is part of that, but it's not necessarily the lead there. So is this the right ask for that person? And is this the right time? And we know that there are certain indications of when the time is right and when the time is not. When the day before somebody's going into the hospital for major surgery is not the time to approach them with a legacy conversation. But a month after that, when they're feeling a lot better, might be a great time. So the right time, the right person, the right ask, and the right time. Then there's the question about the conversation. Have you had a quality conversation with a potential donor where you asked and you learned about their connection to the organization? You went deeper. You talked to them about legacy, maybe told them your story and invited them to be a part of the future. So you're really lucky if you just get to hand them a letter of intent and they sign it and send it back. But the best practice is to actually have a nice conversation with a human being one-on-one, finding out why they care about your organization and what does the future look like and how they can make a difference in that future. And did you follow up? Because a lot of times it'll end because you didn't follow up. So I know that there was an opportunity. I just heard about an opportunity where a donor came up to the rabbi and said, I want to make a gift to the shul. Great. how much you want to make, $100,000 gift, great. If that person doesn't call that donor back, they may never get that $100,000. So it's just a very simple matter of keeping track and then following up. You mentioned that you might be interested. I just wanted to follow up on your conversation, or I sent you that email. What do you think now that you've had a little bit to think about it? Or the small groups, I asked about the follow-up. What happens in the small group is one element. What happens after can really close the deal. So afterwards, somebody who was at the small group from the team calls up the people that were there and said, I know you were part of this conversation. What did you think? Is this something that you might be interested in? Did you have any questions? Great opportunity. All right, so what's an integrated ask, or as Arlene Schiff, our national director, she started to call it the integrated investment, because what we're doing is we're giving a donor the opportunity to invest in your organization in a variety of ways, using whatever form or time frame or asset structure best meets their needs, their desire, their position. So that might be annual, and that might be capital, and that might be endowment, and it might be legacy endowment after lifetime. So we have to be ready when we have these conversations to pull out whichever. Saw a lady at the where I had lunch today. She had an apron, and on her apron was all these different color pens. So imagine these are each a different color pen: annual, capital, special, endowment, legacy. And you have to be able to pick out the pen that works, the right one for the right conversation at that time. And if somebody says no, then you go back to some other, you have another pen you can take out. This is beneficial for your organization because it saves time. You're not going back to multiple people multiple times. This is particularly important in a federation setting, and they are experts at this. If you go just for the annual gift, then at some point you got to go back, or you're going back, but you're not there for annual. So really the people who are asking for annual also need to have this legacy information. It changes the conversation from that transactional to more relationship based, focused on the donor, and lets you build stronger relationships with them when it's not just about will you repeat your gift from last year, but it's really about, we have a variety of needs and you have a variety of interests, and how can we marry those two for the good of the organization, and so that you get to make the biggest impact that you want to. When you do this, you also are providing for both the short term of your organization, which is the now money that you need to keep the lights on and keep the staff employed and keep the programs running, as well as the long term, when we have issues like a pandemic that requires all kinds of shifting to the other foot. And there's a big benefit to the donor. It's efficient for them. It saves time for them. They appreciate that you're thinking of them, you're showing your gratitude, you're showing your appreciation, you're showing that they're a partner with you. And you're giving them the opportunity to envision what difference their philanthropy could make. So there's two ways of handling it. You could ask jointly for both types of gifts at the same time, like I'm here to ask for a capital and a legacy gift, or you could separate them. And then we always recommend annual first and legacy comes after. It's also a nice opportunity if the answer to the first is no, a person in conversation with another person, they want to say yes. So if they can't say no because they have high medical bills this year, so they aren't able to give the gift that they usually can give on an annual basis, might you be interested in a legacy gift, which you don't have to pay until after lifetime? And that might be an ask that they can say yes to. So how might you set the appointment? Use their name. Hi, Tammy. I'm going to say Eileen. Hi, Eileen. I'm calling for two reasons. You've been a long time donor. You've even served on our board Thank you for your continued support and your involvement in our organization. Your commitment year after year is what allows us to be here day after day, being able to educate the children and helping the needy, et cetera, whatever you do. We're actively working on increasing our annual support and planning for our future. I would love to come speak to you about what we're thinking and hear your thoughts and how you might want to be involved. So it's clear why I'm calling. I'm reminding them of their association. I'm thanking them. I'm reminding them of the good work that we do. And I'm looking for their input and their support. Not a surprise. It's about opening warmly, and that the open warmly, you don't open warmly and then go to the ask. There's a lot between that, right? There's the, Eileen, I want to see you shake your head vigorously for that one. That's where the meat of it happens, is between the open and the ask. That's where the conversation happens. And that's where you get to know who you're talking to and why they care about your organization. And then you get to the ask, the current gift first, and then the other gift, thank them, move to the legacy conversation, of course, thank again. So if they've said yes to the annual or the first ask, the way that you might go into that next part is, would you consider a legacy commitment in addition to your generous support? Thank you so much for your current operating support. Have you heard about our legacy initiative? And then you could talk about how it works. You can talk about the incentive, and you can establish a plan to follow up. And if they say no, remember, this is an opportunity to turn that no into a yes, thank you. And by the way, thank you for your support year after over year over year. I understand that you can't make an annual gift today. Maybe you'd consider leaving a legacy because you don't have to make a payment now or in the near term. And then again, you can go into the conversation, share your story, talk about the incentive grant if that's reasonable, thank them, and talk about the follow-up. In that conversation, that space between open and ask, you uncover their story. What's their connection to your organization? And you share your story. And you invite them to partner with you. After the meeting, there's a handwritten thank you note. There isn't one. You have to do it. You have to thank them for making the time to meet with you to talk about legacy. And make your notes. What did you learn? What should be the next steps in that conversation? And then report that back to your legacy team so that you can follow up. All right, I'm going to just take a break here because I suspect that there are people may have questions, you may have comments. I'd love to hear. Alan.
The last comment you made is critical. You need to document these interactions. There'll be different volunteers at different times dealing with people, and they need to know the history of their asking and their involvement. We call in development, we call them trip reports. But you need to document and have a system within your organization. You don't want to go back to somebody that says, I really don't like the X, and go ask them for X. If you had that information, you wouldn't make that ask. So documenting your conversations and having your organization have a filing system and a way of gathering that information. And once you have that, when somebody goes out to talk to them again, they need to look at the file. They need to be prepared when they go into them. Don't ever bring Alan on this ask. They hate Alan. We got lots of people like that. And you need to make sure that's that right person making the ask.
Yeah.
But you got to know what their concerns are, or what their idiosyncrasies are, or how nuts they are.
So Alan jumped to the end of my, you jumped to the end of my presentation. I have a whole thing on that. Now I don't have to say it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And you have an organizational report. If you haven't figured out how to use it, call Osnat and she'll walk you through it. But it doesn't have to be complicated. Just report when somebody gives you, when the team lead gives you a name and you go have the conversation, come back to the team lead and just report on how it went, the notes that you feel need to be communicated. And then whether it's you who follows up or somebody else, there's a record that that happened, the date that it happened, the person that it happened, and you can go back. We know that these days there's a lot of transition happening. So we want to put in place a system that will outlast any one of us.
And you need to look at their giving history. They've been giving dues, they've been going up a little bit each year. They also, in your last capital campaign, paid for X and made that type of contribution. You need to have that information when you meet with people.
Yeah. Be prepared. Any other comments about the integrated ask or conversation? Who on the line has had a conversation, a legacy conversation? Most of your hands are up, but not all of them. Anything we can address here? It's not, did anything come through the chat?
Tammy, I shared a question that Esther had, which I think may be related to this a little bit, but she was curious if other organizations are having their volunteers or paid, staffers work on life and legacy. And she said her team is all volunteers. And how does she keep them involved and not feeling overwhelmed? Which
Okay.
may be related to, asking, that.
I think that's a great question. Thank you, Esther.
Just one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Tammy. Sorry that I'm not
On
showing my
camera.
face tonight, but I will in the future. I'm just
Okay.
been went one place to the other tonight. So I think the first year or the beginning of this whole project there was a sort of a momentum, and we did really well. And now I'm finding like, all the people involved in our team, they're all volunteering their time, their talents. They've been incredible. And I'm finding like, okay, how many years am I committing myself to this? So I need a little direction as the leader of the team, because none of our team members are being paid. So I can't,
Right.
It's really their own kindness that they're doing this, and they of course believe in the work of Chabad, which is wonderful, but I need to find some ways to get them, to keep them motivated. And so I'd love direction on that.
Okay, great question that we all have, because teams are the hardest part of this. The organizations that are most successful at legacy have a strong team. They have a team that meets regularly, and they have specific tasks assigned to each team member. So maybe this person doesn't want to be an asker, but maybe this person loves to write thank you notes. And so person X goes and has the conversation, they report back, and person Y is the one that writes the thank you note for the letter of intent when it comes in. Or some people love to do events, or they love to put together Purim baskets. They love to think, ooh, let me make a camping Purim basket, mishloach manot, it would be so much fun. They love to do that, so they can put together that for the legacy donors, and they bring joy to the legacy donors, and they show appreciation, and they have a very important role on the team, and it may not be having a conversation. So I think having specific roles for each of the volunteers and helping them feel good about the work that they do. So really, when you get a win, you got to celebrate. And you've all had wins. You all had wins at year one, and now you're starting to have wins in year two, which is, as you know, a little harder. It's not quite as easy. So celebrate the wins with the people that are putting in the work to try to get the wins. And you can be creative about that. The strength of Chabad in what we see across the country is in your relationships with your people. You have good, strong one-on-one relationships with your people. So that may make the professional staff more effective at maybe the asking part, whereas the volunteers may be more come in for some of the marketing, some of the stewardship, some of the extra pieces. So I think that's what I would say at this point. And I would love to, Osnat, if you'd make a note to follow up with Esther and have a one-on-one conversation, and maybe we can get into the more specifics about how to work specifically with your group of volunteers, so that it should be you want it to be a good, rewarding experience, and nobody should have to feel like if they say yes, they're going to have to do it forever and ever and ever. Amen. Right, Bernie and Barb? You're in it together. You're here every time at every training. Right? It's just wonderful. Oh, you're so cute. Wait, what am I seeing? You hurt your arm?
I broke my wrist.
Not because of legacy, I hope.
Oh, not because of ice and not because of legacy.
Okay.
I see Robin's hand raised.
Yeah, Robin.
So I wanted to respond to Esther. So,
Yeah.
we do have volunteers doing the ask, and we're fortunate that several of us have development experience, but we're also finding that people are reaching out to our executive director. And, when we list, in our communications, you can contact Robin or Judy or Alan or Melissa, people are reaching out to her. I think they think for whatever reason, it's a more confidential conversation, even though we are all trained in confidentiality. But I think having a staff person who is available to answer questions is very beneficial.
Excellent. Great point. By the way, that is why you have Osnat, and that is why you have Eileen, because sometimes donors want sort of a more objective third party, not somebody who's going to make them feel like you have to give it all to the synagogue and it has to be over $1 million, right? They want to have really a confidential question. We have this asset and this is what we'd like to accomplish. How can we do that? Very few people will ask that of somebody making a philanthropic donation. So use your trusted advisors that are local to that benefit. So great point, Robin. Thank you. Shira.
I just was going to plug Jen for a minute, because on our last group conversation, she asked how people were doing, and people did express some frustration. And she has been emailing us. She's done it a couple of times this month with little inspirational encouragement. So yay, Jen.
Nice. Very nice. So she made you feel good that you're a part of this effort.
And just to keep us going.
Yeah.
Reading, yes.
Yeah. Some people like the trainings for that, like just hearing me and getting each other, seeing each other's faces, realizing that you're not the only one doing it, that Eileen's still there, rooting you on, that Osnat is still there, ready to talk with you and work through your specific issue. Hearing both the successes and the challenges that the other teams are facing, it's all motivating. It helps us get through it. And this is not easy stuff, and it's not easy in your second year. I think you guys have done a marvelous job, an incredible, small and tight community, and I'm very proud of the work that you've done so far. You do need to get with it though, and get on the stick and try to move your legacy forward. All right, I'm going to push on, and I am, in the interest of time, I am running through formalization because we are not yet incentivizing you to do that. We get really serious about that in year 3. So best practices with formalization is really just to, when a donor is ready to formalize, be ready to work with them. And that means calling in your trusted advisors like Eileen or people from the foundation or your executive director, or whoever is on your staff. And we do have already the confirmation of gift form. So if somebody's ready to go directly to that place, they can. They don't have to start with the intent. They can go directly to confirmation. Okay, so marketing. Best practices in marketing. And one of you mentioned this, so true, that you think you're out there all the time. You think you're saturating the market with this legacy stuff. But even with that, somebody who's really on top of things still doesn't know what you're talking about. And all you can do really is laugh. But keep getting the message out there and keep changing it up and changing the vehicle or the media that you use. That's why we have things like the tagline that you can put on your email signature, the logo that you can put in your newsletter, somebody's story where you have this lovely picture and the story of why they did it, a listing. It might be a Facebook thing, it might be a letter, it might be a postcard, it might be a Shalach Manas at Purim time. Just keep getting that message out there, and they will hear it, probably from one of you all, but they will get the message. I'm trying to get from our national office, I'm trying to get us on the gefilte fish jars at Pesach. I figure legacy giving should be on the Manischewitz gefilte fish jar, so that when you go buy your gefilte fish at Pesach, you get a message about making a legacy gift. But it's not going to happen this year, so don't go looking for it. Are you using the tagline? Is legacy giving on your website? Look at your website, say, is it attractive? If I'm the donor, do I want to do something when I go onto your website and I hit the ways to give button and I see legacy giving and I click on that? Is there a beautiful picture of Bernie and Barb there saying, we're legacy donors and we want you to join us? So that's what we want you to be thinking about, is make the information easy, get it out there in different ways. Share the stories, and look, most of us are on social media using video. I know right now I'm doing a lot of Olympic figure skating watching on my social media feed, but that's a great way to tell a story of a legacy donor who's made a difference, and to put it on your Facebook page. It's a fun little quick click play and watch it. And then I have, and it's a big motivator, hearing the story of a living legacy donor. You're probably all using your newsletters. When you use your newsletter, are you changing it up? So maybe one time it's, this is what Life and Legacy is, but the next time do something different. Don't even say what Life and Legacy is. Give me something else. Give me a story. Tell me something that happened at your organization because of an endowment fund. So keep the message coming, drip by drip by drip. These are the different ways. Like, this was a great series in Delaware that the community put on. Each month they had a different ad that they put out with a different family that told their legacy story, and then contact information. This is a Facebook post, or this was actually looks like I don't know, Twitter, maybe Instagram, whatever you use. Repeat the message, tell stories, share why people did it. Use the tagline, offer legacy as one of the ways that a donor can give to you. I love this picture because you see that it's a ship, but then you keep looking and all of a sudden it's a bridge or arches. Like, in the repetition, a new reality emerges. In the repetition of talking about legacy giving, what we're hoping is the new reality will be that more people will be making legacy gifts. Testimonials. Ask any of your 18 or more donors to share their story. and start with the donor story, not what we need. The school needs books, so give books. You start with the donor. I love books, and so I wanted to support the library, or whatever it is that comes from the donor. And you can tell lots of different stories because everybody has a different story. Everybody resonates with some other aspect of their experience and of your organization. These were just quick, easy stories, right? For our congregation's children and grandchildren. I thought that was so beautiful. And I was in the room when I asked the gentleman who did this, and I said, can you say that again? And I recorded it on my phone, and I took a picture, and they turned it into a poster, and they can put it on their social media feed, and they can send it around as a card, right? CBI is our second home. We have provided for them as we have for our own family. Great message, and such adorable human beings. So people in your organization, they know other people in your organization. So those are the stories you want to tell. That's why we don't give you stock stories, because you all have your own great stories. I hope that you'll share some of them with us. This is the tagline. If you don't remember, be remembered forever by our organization or by our Jewish community with a gift in your, right? Because it says it's a gift. It says why they would do it, to make a name, to keep their name in the world. And it says how they would do it. We're here for you today. Your legacy gift ensures we're here for your children tomorrow. So that immediately tells me what a legacy gift is. It's for tomorrow. It's for tomorrow's kids. So I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I do know that that you're thinking of the future and you still want to be here in the future. Those magic boxes. Is anybody using the magic boxes? Have you added them to your stuff? Great.
What's in the box?
The magic box is on a membership renewal form or on another kind of a pledge card. Contact me to discuss, or I have already included in my will trust retirement account. So that gives them the opportunity to self-disclose, which allows you getting the information to follow up and have that better conversation. That can be on the bill, on the invoice that I get 12 times a year. It can say, have you done this already, or will you? All right, stewardship. I'm going to stop because I wanted to ask you guys, what stewardship are you proud of that you've done in the last year? What's worked?
Well, for us, we have for every program or event, if we do something special that we would normally have done for our major donors, many of whom are legacy donors, but not all of our legacy donors are major donors. We have been including our legacy donors, and really anything that we've incorporated, some things that we're doing now are new. So I've started sending birthday cards, for example, and that came out not because of Life and Legacy. It came out of, a suggestion from our consultants around campaign, but so all of our majors and our legacy donors receive birthday cards. So really just anything that we're doing in that regard, we're doing for our legacy donors. So that's one.
Beautiful. And you invited them to the
Yes, we invited them to our major donor event at the beginning of the campaign, and then to the pre-glow last night. And then, all of our major donors got a book, Dara Horn's book. And so all of our legacy donors will also get a copy of Dara Horn's book.
Nice. Anybody else?
We have put together like a stewardship plan that has both like time-based touches as well as milestone-based touches. So when they give us an LOI, we do a little package with I've told you there's a little planter with seeds of gratitude and a nice note. When they formalize, we just created these cute little postcards that it's a kid's work a student's work that's a thank you,
Nice.
and write a handwritten note.
Beautiful.
And, you know, as was not sent out recently, our Purim bag fundraiser just launched, and anybody who would like to use that for your own stewardship is certainly welcome to. We will use that as stewardship for all of our donors. So that's a time-based one. So we're just trying to do a couple of different things, trying not to spend a lot of money because our donors do not want us to spend a lot of money,
Right.
but
Yes.
really personalize it and make it connected to the school. Our next thing that's coming out is sort of what's going on in the schools, our big academic fair time. And so the kids' work is all bright and colorful and really present. So trying to use their work and as inspiration as it should be.
Nice. Nice.
I see Robin has her hand.
Oh, Robin.
We've been partnering with our gift shop. So we have WTB has a gift shop. So for Hanukkah, we had 2 anonymous donors paid for Hanukkah candles. And then for Passover, we have a tea towel. We went through with our WTBE gift shop coordinator, who's also a Life and Legacy donor. Went through a
Nice.
range of items, and we found something that we think is very simple but practical. And where they're going to be getting a postcard, and they can come pick up a Passover tea towel in the gift shop during
Oh,
the
love it.
Passover sale.
Love it. And that's, by the way, that's a sweet story, right? And it's a story that tells about some collaboration between legacy donors and between you and the organization. So that's a nice thing to share. I like that. It's very creative. JCC, anything from the JCC?
Well, I was going to say that a few times we have been putting together something like around Hanukkah, putting together a bag, or in the fall, we went to the farmer's market and bought some different kinds of apples, and
Fun.
for apples and honey, we put together bags, and then committee members have been dropping them off at our donors' homes, and so during COVID, it's like the only time we've seen each other, and people said, well, it's really nice to see each other. I myself did not do that, but I want to recognize the committee members that did go around the town to do that. And
Yeah,
and I didn't do that much, but they said they enjoyed it. So
very special, very special.
So we are putting together Purim cards that we're gonna send out to people. And actually I was just talking to Dave too, saying that one of my goals that I think we really need to focus in on is some type of stewardship timeline. So similar to what Jen was saying, and sort of marking, each accomplishment and having that as part of our plan moving forward.
Yeah, great. Good. I like the way you're already thinking of integrating it. And you know that has to integrate it fully, you have to have it part of the calendar of the organization. Yeah. Barb, you have to unmute.
Yeah, just to follow up a little bit with what Rini said about delivering the bags, that really has been fun, and talking to people has really made a difference. But in some of the worst weather, for the birthday cards, what we've done is try to write as much as we can think of about all the neat things that person has done for JCS over however many years they've been a member of JCS. So it's been the cards have been quite personalized, and it's been fun to do that because it makes us realize how important that person has been to JCS for a long time. And
That's beautiful. It really makes somebody be seen, that they're being noticed, not just for what they know what they did, but to be reminded of what they did, and for other people to notice what they did. Very beautiful.
Can I share something that I got from Durham, North Carolina?
Sorry, go ahead. Yes, you can.
So I am a legacy donor to the day school that we helped found in Chapel Hill, Durham. And so they are also a Life and Legacy community, and they have taken I forget the tagline. Sorry, Tammy, for if you've done one and then you share it out.
Each one, reach one.
Each one, reach one. So I got a little package. This was from Life and Legacy, not specifically from the school, but they had these note cards, a stationery that is from Nepal that has seeds incorporated into the paper. So like if you stick it in dirt, it'll grow. And they gave, like, I got 2 packets, right? This was the idea. I mean, we wouldn't necessarily have to do it this way, but we had 2 packets, one for me and one for me to share with somebody else so that, I'd get them to do a legacy. Anyway, I just thought that was like incredibly cool. I actually brought them into Osnat to share with everybody, but since people are on the call, I don't know where, there was no like label, like exactly where they ordered them from. So I'd love to know that, Tammy, but it was just a really cool thing, and reminds me a bit of what Jen, what HDS has been doing, but it's in a different way and a different twist. So it's not copying.
Yeah, have us not follow up with me. I can try to trace back and figure out where they did it. And we have seen that a few different times. People sometimes do it for Tu B'Shvat, or they come out around Purim, and then you grow them in time for Passover. Like parsley is a very quick growing thing like that. But I have seen those, very cool.
They also have kippot that you can plant in their seeds and grow. I tried to get them from one of my kids' bar mitzvahs. They're really expensive though.
Okay, so let me push on. So the system for regularly thanking donors, sharing stories of impact. So not just the story of the legacy donor, but what's going on in your organization that is something that your legacy donors may be interested in hearing about, because they made an investment in your future. So they want you to keep doing whatever you're doing, and let them know how you're doing and how you're growing and how you're planning. If you want to do a legacy society, that's a good way to keep all the legacy donors sort of in one area, so you don't miss anybody. And are you listing them? Because the list is really a nice way to show that this isn't just a one and done, that this is continually growing, that more people are coming on each day, and that adds to the momentum. And have you hosted a legacy event? Because you already had a successful year. It's a great opportunity, if you haven't yet, to do a Zoom l'chaim. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be expensive. And just thank the people that made it possible. And all of those little things make people feel good. They make people feel realized, and hopefully encourage them to bring in other people to do it as well. All right, I'm going to jump ahead. These were very cute, different little gifts, but we've talked about a lot of gifts, and I don't want to focus on the gifts because there's so many ways to steward, to show appreciation that don't cost any money. And it shouldn't only be on one person. If you're the development person or the chief executive, you shouldn't be the only one doing this. Get your board members involved. Start the next board meeting by handing out 2 names and 2 phone numbers to each person, and ask them to pick up their phone and take the next 5 minutes and just check in with a legacy donor and say thank you for making your legacy commitment. So it can really be inexpensive. It can be shared. A lot of people doing it. That's important. You'll be able to look at this. I'll send you the PDF, so you'll see all the different ways that people get the message out in a smart way. All right, teams, and we talked about teams, and so that it's in here so you can refer to it. Try to bring a new team member, and we've just started offering national trainings. So like last night we offered a training on the conversation. You've all had that training, but if some of you on this call missed it, there'll be other opportunities to participate. And we had 80 people from all over North America on the call learning how to have a legacy conversation. So it's a nice way to get some more learning and bring new people onto the team. So your boards of directors, how many of you have 100% of your board signed on as legacy donors? Woo! The only one I could see was HDS. So good for you guys. That's amazing. You want to tell me how you did that? I'm going to stop for a minute. How'd you do that?
Our our board is really committed to our school, and I think it was an easy first sell. Actually, it was the first place that we had the legacy conversation, and everyone was really happy to participate. One of the things that I think is so useful when you're having these conversations, especially with people who aren't sure about their long-term plans, is that this is revocable. And it's incumbent upon us as an organization to keep you involved and interested and committed. And so you can always change your mind. This is you do not have to do anything. You do not have to give me $1 right now. And and my job is to keep you involved and invested and to continue to thank you. And so that worked with our board, and it works in a lot of our conversations.
Beautiful. And how long did it take your board to get to that 100% place? Like, how many times did you have to bring it up, talk about it?
I would say about half of them, we only had to do it once. And the other half we followed up. And I think by the second or third quarter of year one, we had all.
Wow. Okay. Do you have a plan for the new ones? That's the thing about boards of directors. They change all the time. Every year there's somebody new on the board. You got to train the new people. All right, so that's a great point about how to bring.
Alan has his hand up.
Yeah, about how to bring board members on. So call Jen if you need assistance on that. Thanks, Jen. Alan.
Just a quick comment about long-term stewardship. We're in the early stages of this.
Yes.
We're going to have people, going to Florida or Arizona or wherever. You've got to keep up with them. The trinkets and trash are nice for now, the little things. They don't make a damn bit of difference. But keeping up with the folks when they move, we've been talking about doing an annual letter or something, or a phone call to them.
Yep.
Saying, we know you're in Florida, the temple was very important to you. We appreciate your life and legacy. Here's what's going on, some stuff like that. Because you don't want to, they are, as Jen said, they're revocable. And if you're not providing ongoing stewardship at some level, those gifts can go away very fast.
Yes.
And we're also talking about getting more information from our donors about who in their family we should be in contact with when something happens. What are their financial, who do they want us to be in touch with?
Yep.
And also, have they shared with their families their intentions for our organization?
Yes.
So you don't have a fight at the end. What do you mean they left you $200,000? I was putting my kids through college with that money.
Right.
And making sure they're sharing that. But we're talking about a long-term process and keeping up with them in some way on an annual basis, especially if they're not in town.
Yes. Thank you, Alan. Huge and really important point. And also that idea that you might not be the person that is in charge when that gift comes to realization. So you need to be able, that it's not just one person that's the steward, it's the whole organization that really accepts upon itself different roles of keeping people engaged. Dr. Russell James talked about when people move away and you stop hearing from them. They may be older, they may have moved to an assisted living thing. It doesn't mean that they're not reading your newsletter when they get it. That very often people with those connections will maintain those connections, even if you don't know that they're actually reading it. So you got to keep sending it, keep in touch with them. They may be in Florida, but that doesn't mean they love you any less. They're just in Florida. And especially today with ways that we can connect that are virtual, they can still turn you on every Shabbos morning and watch the service. So that's kind of fun too. Okay, so the board education happens over time. So be sure that it keeps coming up at the board. Just like with your team, celebrate the successes. So each time you get a new one, or if there's a particularly touching story that goes with one, share it with the board members. It will encourage the ones who haven't yet made their commitment to get on board, and it will make the ones who have made their commitments feel really good about it. So share those stories. And then think about if you're requiring board members to make a gift, or I like the requirement of having a legacy conversation with somebody from the team. If you're not at the place where you feel like you can require that they make a commitment, you can certainly require that they have a conversation with somebody from the team, because it gives your team members opportunity to practice having a conversation. So works both ways. Behind the scenes, I'm not going to dwell on this because Alan said it so beautifully. Create a tracking system where you can keep track of legacy donors and prospects that are in the system. And lastly, the culture of philanthropy, that legacy giving is, we want it to be a priority and shared responsibility of the board and the staff. So that requires continuing education and continuing to talk about it. So how are you doing on that? Are you making progress on that? Are you providing donors with an opportunity to invest in the causes and programs they care about? That's right. Instead of saying, this is what we need, talking to your donors and saying, what kind of support, what kind of difference would you like to make? Are your donors celebrated and recognized no matter what size gift they're making? And one of the beautiful things I love about inviting the legacy donors to these major donor events is that sometimes a person who will never be in the same room as those major donors gets to be in the same room because they've made an after lifetime commitment. And who's to say whether that's going to be, you know, the secret $1 million commitment or just whatever they're able to give, but they're able to be in those rooms and be noticed and recognized. And do you train all your staff and all your board to be ambassadors for your organization so that everybody's out there passing on the excitement of what's happening in the organization? So what's next? Our next training, which is being donor-centered, is on May 3rd. And very soon after that, May 15th, 16th, and 17th, we're having our conference, our Life and Legacy Leadership Gathering. And we encourage you, information will be coming out, OSNOT will be getting that to you. And we encourage you to participate in any of the sessions that interest you, or all of them. We would love to. It's virtual this year, so you can be together, and we look forward to that. It's always a fun time. I mentioned quickly we've started having national trainings on conversation. We'll be having them on Legacy 101, so good introduction to legacy, and on stewardship as well. So be aware that those are happening. If you have new team members, they can take part in those. And we are also offering periodic national webinars. We just had Brian Klontz, who talked about accepting non-cash gifts, which was incredible. And we did one with Catherine Myrie on gift acceptance policies and endowment policies. So when you hear those announcements, and you'll get that word through OSNOT, please join us. We're so happy to be able to offer these to you. I'm going to stop sharing and invite any questions or comments that you'd like to share. Jen.
I have a question. And I have a question about formalization. I know the last time we met, you said that, you know, this year is still about getting LOIs, and we don't need to focus so much on formalization yet. Federation sent out a letter to all legacy donors about formalization, but I believe that you kind of steered us a little bit away from going so deep into formalization right now. And I also know that like the donors commit to formalizing within 12 months. And so we've passed that with some of our LOIs. And so it does feel a little bit uncomfortable to have, you know, asked them for the commitment within 12 months and then we're not following up with them. I feel like it doesn't reflect that well on us. So I just wanted to find out what you advise at this point.
Thank you. And thank you for taking me back to that part that I skipped really in the presentation about formalization. So you know everything that you need to know in order to go back to any donor and ask them to formalize their gift. Federation has made it very easy by sending out that letter. I would encourage you to have someone from the team who you feel has the bandwidth to do it, or the person who has that relationship with the person, to follow up on the letter and say, did you receive the letter? Have you been able to formalize your gift? Is there any information I can assist you with? Can I put you in touch with Eileen? So that would definitely be called for, and I would encourage you to do it. I don't like to, I know sometimes it's so hard in the second year to even get to that second 18. So I don't want to discourage anybody, say you have to do all this at the same time. Nothing's going to happen if you don't. Well, actually a lot can happen, because what we know is that some people sign a letter of intent and then they can pass away, and you don't have any recourse. But if it's formalized, then you know something has been put in place. So there's a little more chance that you might realize the gift. So I would encourage you, if you feel that your team has the bandwidth, to follow up on the letter that the Federation sent and call people that have indicated at least a year or more that this is the next step in the process, and can we be of any help in making this happen? So thanks for asking, Jen. Great question. And yes. Anything else?
I see Robin's hand. It's kind of like it melds into her tapestry.
Can't see it because you're
I
covered.
I would like Eileen to clarify who got
Yeah.
the letters, because
Yes,
they did not go to everybody.
correct.
The letters went to everybody except folks at TBE, to whom TBE sent letters. So they did go to everybody who, as of the time they were sent, which was early November.
And Robin, I'm going to encourage you to
Never mind.
Yeah.
check in afterwards and find out,
Mhm.
you know, exactly what you need to know.
We did have a special letter from TV that went out through Melissa. And also maybe just to clarify, I mean,
Yeah.
I have spoken with some donors, you know, who are, you know, they say, oh, well, it's in my will. So if they've already, you know, if they've already made a decision, they don't have to do a letter of intent. Instead of the letter of intent, I just have them fill out the gift confirmation form. And then if they want to include the copy of the page in their will, they can, but it doesn't matter. Like, once they filled out that gift confirmation form, even if it's the first time, then it counts as an LOI and as a formalization. Am I right, Tammy?
If I think you mean that if they fill out the letter of intent and they check the box that says, I have already made arrangements.
No, I mean, I've had a conversation with someone with whom I've never had a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't have a letter of intent for
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
And they say, oh yeah, we have something, we're happy to do it. I only have them complete the gift confirmation form, because
Correct.
that counts as letter of intent and then formalization.
Yes, it does.
Okay, I just want everybody to hear that.
Yes. Okay, some good and welfare. EMU, I haven't heard from you. How are you doing? Donna, Marty?
So Marty left, and he
Okay.
would really be a better reporter, but he sent me a note and we will meet afterwards because we haven't been active enough.
Okay, great. I also wanted to make a mention of, I have a community that did very well on formalization. They formalized 80% of their gifts in the first year. How did they do that? Because they asked people for $1,000 gifts. And I just wanted to warn you that an $18,000 endowment, as Alan knows, and so many of you on this call know, is not a good endowment. It's not going to be able to keep you going and provide the security that your organization needs. So that is our minimum. We do not recommend you use that amount. As a matter of fact, stay away from amounts altogether, particularly in an inflationary environment. It is not good to say, we'll give you X amount of dollars, because tomorrow it'll be worth half. So use a percentage. We really encourage you to do that. The lawyers don't like it. They like to know what the amount's going to be. It's easier to disperse, but we encourage you to say, you know, what's this worth to you? What is the value of our organization? What impact do you want to make? Let's talk about what kind of gift that would be. And then to take it from there, rather than saying, yeah, we just need $1,000. So I just wanted to put that cautionary tale out there. Any other last words, comments, nice things that you want to share?
I just want to thank everybody for all the incredible work that they're doing. And I can speak for the Federation team. I know that we are also in our own little slump, and we're getting ready to, schedule our next meeting and get ourselves back on track. So that's us. And we are also working, through all our meetings with you to help all of you and be there for you. And we'll be, putting together lists and working with you to put together lists and having some more conversations and collaborations and bringing the group together to share our best practices. So all of that is coming now that main event is over. And so again, we really thank you all so much for all you're doing on behalf of the community. So
I want us not to be,
Tammy.
my pleasure. I want us not to be so busy that she doesn't even have time to talk to me. And
well, I also I'm going to share Osnat. Poor Osnat is at home with her kids and her husband's at work, and her smoke alarms have been going off. So she can't unmute so that's why she's been disappearing, and that's why she's not unmuting now. So I know she shares all of the sentiments that I just shared.
Right.
And it's amazing. Your calmness in the face of beeping smoke alarms is very impressive, Osnat.
So thank you all for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.